It's Saturday or Friday.
Hi.
Hello.
Ian.
Hello, and I'm Danielle Tully.
You probably know us anyway, but our names are in front of us too. So
yes.
Then we tell them, we say it again. So there's no mistaking. There's not some movie stars on here who you haven't met before. And this is Putting the Real in Real Estate. We have a real topic to talk about today. We're going to tell you in a minute what that is, but we want to say if you are joining us, whether you're live or watching this after the fact, drop in the comments where you're from. We like to see who's tuning in. And also, sometimes the information we're giving is nationwide. Sometimes it might even be worldwide. Most of the time, there's going to be elements, at least, that are local. And local might mean our state. It might mean our MLS, our region of the state, or it might mean our very specific markets where we primarily work.
So this week's topic, which we said a couple weeks ago we were going to do, so here it is. It's about.
It was planned. It was on purpose.
It was. And you know what? And to be honest, even when we planned what we were going to talk about today, I think Ruth will agree that it's kind of shifted in topic because we're talking about new builds and how we can help. And it was just going to be an informational bit about, things to look for in new builds and how we can help, because a lot of people don't know that. And that's where it started. But the amount of information that we've come across or we've experienced just in the last 2 weeks.
How much things have changed.
Right.
The whole sector of the industry has changed dramatically.
Correct. That we have lots of different information to share with you. And how things are changing so fast in this market, even in new builds. So, we'll probably start with the most obvious that we've, once again, made comments about lately is lumber, right?
Hold on 1 second. I do want to give a disclaimer before we start.
Okay, sorry.
Because I think it's important. There are a lot of builders. They run the gamut from building one house at a time to building lots of 400. They are sometimes national, sometimes local. They all run their businesses very differently. We're going to be speaking mostly in general terms. And when we get specific, we're probably not going to say who we're talking about. If you want to know, you'll have to ask us later. But so everything we're saying is not true of all builders, but we want you to be aware of what to ask, what to look for. A lot of times when people start talking to a builder, they stop talking to us, and that's probably the worst thing you can do. So we're always going to get you the best of whatever you can get. Talking to us should always be the first thing you do. Even if that means, for whatever reason, you won't be working with us, we're going to give you the best advice. So we can look out over that whole sector and be relatively neutral.
Right. And for the most part, we are going to be talking about nationwide builders or large regional builders, opposed to the mom and pops. Because actually, in my experience, they've been very good. But you still want somebody representing you. So some of the things that we're talking about are not necessarily, hi Mom, are not necessarily, across the board, but it is still things to look for and consider. So as I was saying, now that our disclaimer got out there, because that is very important to differentiate what we're talking about, is the price of lumber. We've talked about the price of lumber going up, and that is contributing to, demand being, or supply still being low. And so one of the things I just got today, a bit of information that I thought was interesting, and this is from the new Home Builders Association. It is saying that the average single family home has risen by 36 $12,000 in the last 12 months due to lumber prices. And that is even up $12,000 just from the end of February. So in 2 months, just the building costs, the average building cost has gone up $12,000 because of labor or lumber. And then you add that demand on there, and it's just getting crazy high.
And that's average. So that means some might be going up $20,000, some might be going up $75,000. And the thing about being in a contract with a new build is typically the price is not the price. So you sign a contract for one price, and what you pay at the end of the process can be very different. I saw yesterday that they were not even working with, typically they have a list price. It's typically relatively non-negotiable. Occasionally they run incentives. You can sometimes get them to add amenities that aren't included, but it's very important for most builders model to hit those price points so they don't typically negotiate them down. They also don't usually negotiate them up. So most of the time when you buy a new build, you go in and you choose your lot. You buy that lot, you find out, what kind of a house you want to build and get that figure. You don't usually have somebody else standing there making offers on that same house you're building. That is changing with a lot of builders, right?
Yes, and in fact, again, new information. Just got an email yesterday because I do have a client that might be interested in a new construction, and I've been waiting on a new townhouse community near me to become available, and I got an email yesterday about it. Excuse me. And basically, they're putting in step after step after step. Instead of saying, models now open, come on in. Now they're having potential buyers come in for a pre-model in interrogation interview. Where I get, they're saying that if you come and talk to them, they're not saying bring your agent, but they're saying, which you should, but they're having you come in, and they said, if you come to this, you'll get. Now I was on the VIP list. Now they want me to come in and talk to them in person before models are available, just to get further VIP. Then I'll be, that much.
VVIP?
VVIP. VVIP, yes, exactly. I'll be VVIP and then get even faster access or first access, more so than anybody else. And I think that is, again, a way they're doing tactics here and there where they're protecting the agent less and less.
And including
the buyers less and less because they don't want them.
Yeah, that doesn't protect the buyer. So when we say, talk to us first, when we say make sure we're with you, there's a really important reason for that people often don't understand. First of all, people think they can walk off the street into a builder's office and just look at the models and see whether they like them or not, and find out, how much they cost. None of that will happen.
Right.
You will get a tour of the models, but you'll get a tour with the salesperson. They often require an appointment.
They will require
you. What's that?
Their salesperson, by the way.
Their salesperson, yes. And they will require you to sign in, and that sign in usually is a waiver of your right to representation. So when you do that, you say, I will not have my own person who has my interests, my fiduciary duty, and my confidentiality that they have to hold sacred the way realtors do. And you will be dealing with a salesperson. We used the analogy of buying a car a few weeks ago. You certainly don't feel in the car buying process as if anyone is doing anything in your interest, right? I always walk out of there feeling like I just really got the, whatever the family friendly word is, taken advantage of.
Yes.
And you know, this is not to slam the builder's model. They have their own interest at heart. That's what they're going to protect. That's their job. They have their employees, their shareholders. That's who their duty is to.
Well, and there's no difference. I mean, there's slight difference because they're not realtors, but for the most part, or many times, and sometimes they are. But it's the same reason why a buyer should have representation on their side, because anybody, it's not going to save you money by going straight to the agent like a lot of people think. It's going to benefit the seller. First and foremost, they are, the agent has fiduciary responsibility for the seller in that case. And in this case, it's, the builder is the one who employs them. So that's, And
I think that saving money is really important. It's always been the tradition that builders got a lot of benefit from working with realtors. Advertising and marketing as a builder is one of their biggest expenses. And so to advertise and market to bring people in to buy those houses is very, very expensive. When a realtor is already working with a client and can bring that person in ready to go, ready to buy, that cuts that builder's cost down substantially. So traditionally, sorry, I didn't turn my notifications off. I don't know if those are showing up. Traditionally, builders took that money to pay the realtor fees. So it really didn't cost the builder more money. And didn't cost the builder more money to work with realtors. That was a common misconception.
Correct. Yeah, it's all built in. But so some of the tactics. So besides the trying to get rid of representation for the buyer, some of the tactics that we're seeing here are, well, first of all, one thing that you always have to know is that, again, larger builders tend to have their own contracts. And guess who which is part of the reason that you really want representation on your side, is that who do you think those contracts are going to benefit? Who do you think has to pay a lot of money if for some reason your financing is not in line when they're ready to close, but who does not have to pay you or has no repercussion when the building's not ready when they said it was going to be? Things like, so obviously you drive past new construction, you see the big signs, it says starting at whatever that number is. Well, that's because they bring you in and they want you, again, some have been really great and puts in a lot of good standards, but there's a lot that they want you to have $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 or more of upgrades.
And by upgrades, that's like, practically like walls. Like,
in some cases, yes. It's
things you would not consider upgrades are often upgrades.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, that's another reason of having somebody like us come in and help you decide, what? Yes, getting, because I have them in all my rooms, unless you're an electrician or something, there are things that, getting the lights in the middle of the bedrooms, the sockets, or sometimes they put in, yes, get the sockets, but don't get the, or am I calling it the right thing? But you don't have to necessarily pay $250. What?
The boxes, they put the boxes.
Yeah, in. The boxes, right. So yes, pay the $100 or $150 or whatever for the boxes, but no, you don't necessarily have to pay the $300 for the ceiling fan to be added. So we start to help you figure out, we can help you figure out where, it makes sense to do builder grade or do kind of middle of the road and where it makes sense to really have, put your best foot forward and go, yep, that's worth the upgrade.
And the other thing we can do is help you compare to, if you're looking at a few different possibilities, each one of them is going to tell you why the other builder sucks. So we can kind of, as an intermediary, compare apples to apples and help you make a good decision. That I find that much harder to do when talking to salespeople.
And we either know from experience, or we talk to other agents or people all the time who have had bad experiences with different builders. My brother, as my mother said, is waffling back and forth on if he wants new construction or if he wants to buy a resale. And one of the things I pointed out is, like, I know of somebody I helped sell their house. Their house was 2 years old when they sold it, so they had built it. And they told me how they had to fight with the builder because the builder put the wrong sized air conditioning unit for their house. It was never, ever, ever big enough. And it was that's what they paid for. And so it's horror stories or cautionary tales or little things to look for here and there.
And our network of realtors across the country is really, really plugged into that. So there are many builders we know exactly what they tend to skimp on. We know whether they have a good reputation for resolving issues and disputes. And that's something that, you're never going to get on your own. But sometimes too, just even having someone to ask a question to who isn't representing that builder. So we have, if you have a question about the electrical, like you're talking about, we have people that you can say, hey, what would it cost if I did this after the fact? Or does this make sense? Is this something that, this is what they're recommending and it costs $5,000. Is it something that is actually going to make a difference in my daily life? Right. Those are some of the things that we can help with as well.
Right. And then, other upgrades, like you were talking earlier about, you go out and you buy you pick a lot. Well, we know that, there's level A and level B and level C and level D in almost every model. That's how pretty the front looks. Then there's lot premiums based on where the lots are located. And there's a lot, again, you go, oh, I can afford that. I'm throwing on a $300,000 house. Well, that's their smallest model. Then the model that you need is $320,000, but now you have to pay for the lot. Oops, and the upgrade of the outside because you actually want a porch.
Yeah, and that lot is cheap because it's next to where the garbage cans are or something.
Correct.
Or on the busy corner.
Yes.
So, you need to be able to envision, what is this going to look like when it's built up? What is the view going to be when you go to sell this house, whatever that is? Are people going to come here and say, oh, I don't, let's look for one in a better location?
Correct.
So those premium lots can add a lot to the price, but they can also add to your quality of life when you live in the house, and definitely for resale value. The depth of the basement is something that is often extra. Well, yes. If you've ever walked into a basement that you need to duck in versus one that you haven't, again, resale value, huge. Square footage on new build is actually one of the cheapest things they sell. If you were to add a 200 square foot sunroom to an existing home, you're probably talking about, I don't know, $100,000. Like it's going to be something crazy ridiculous price-wise, and it will be a fraction of that to add it when you're building. So those are the things that you look at and you say, oh, I don't think we really want to go $10,000 more. It's adding a bunch of square footage to the house that can really never be done again. So Those things, the depth of the basement, the depth of the windows in the basement,
Yes.
and the additional square footage are huge things, as well as that lot premium that you want to add in the beginning. But one of the reasons that we decided to do this and kind of shift in what we're talking about is another unfortunate new trend is that, as I said, realtor fees used to just be built into their marketing budget, and so there was not really an issue. We've seen several of, particularly the larger companies, starting to restrict and limit what they're willing to pay agents, and some of them are not willing to pay at all. They're asking buyers to pay their own agent if they want to use one. My question in that circumstance is, why would they not want you to have your own representation? Why would they not want somebody involved in the process who is educated and has experience with this, and who can advise you in your best interests? So think about that if you're thinking about exploring one of those companies. It's funny that most of the companies that are doing that are the ones that we hear
have
shady
not
things
on
about.
time and some other things going on last second. Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
Not
So-
the best reputations.
Buyer beware, and beware before you sign the contract.
Yes. So some tips. So you gave your tip about adding square footage when you can. I think that's a good tip. I think that always getting, I'm a big fan, and I think everybody should always pay for, if it's an option, getting the roughed in the basement.
Yes.
Roughing in the basement is a really good upgrade, I think, to get. What would you? Oh, and I said the upgrade the bedrooms. What's one thing that you think is useless, or you don't necessarily?
Good question. I would say if you're looking to be budget conscious, do it with your finishes. If it's something you can live with, don't go for the most expensive flooring or countertop. And this all depends on what your plans are too, right?
Right.
That is not going to be a factor in resale. Flooring will be either outdated or just used up.
Worn. Yeah.
Finishes will no longer be in style. So
Correct.
if you want to spend the money and do that for yourself, by all means, go ahead. Sometimes it's even easy. It's even less expensive to switch it out afterward.
Right.
But that is not something that you need to look at for resale value.
Correct. All right. Do you think we hit it? Did we talk about how they're changing the prices after people have gone under construction?
I don't think we hit that hard enough.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's another thing that, when you buy resale, you put in the contract, and yes, there's a little bit of negotiation possibly in the first couple days of it. But once you get out of that AI, it's good to go. We're hearing where, due to some costs, that contracted prices are not being, or there's caveats put in these contracts by these builders that if the prices go up, your price now goes up. So people are customizing houses and putting things, or trying to put things in, and then they're finding out that they're getting, oops, it wasn't X, it was X plus 20. It was X plus.
You're buying a house
30.
that you thought was in your budget at $400,000, and by the time you close several months later, it's $460 or $480. Right. That doesn't happen with a resale house.
No.
Whatever you go under contract at, that's what it's going to. Those prices are going up if you're not under contract, but but if you are, that's the price you're going to pay.
Absolutely. So as always, if you have any questions about buying from a builder, or buying resale, or selling in a neighborhood that has, new buys going, there's so many things out there that we can help you with and help guide you with. As always, we're here to help.
Yes, we are. And another thing I want to mention is a good option is anytime you can find a newly built house that is not being sold by the builder. So somebody may have lived there for a year or two and they're selling. Those tend to be, you don't get a quick appreciation typically after. So there's not a big difference in the price, and it's a resale house. So you'll know what you're actually paying for it, and everything's still pretty much brand new.
Yeah, there you go. Still nice and shiny.
See you next week, if not before.
Yes. Take care. Have a good week.